Couple of nights ago this week, I was working on an historical novel, historical fiction, slightly alternate history, and using an AI, as one does, for researching specific questions about time and place and stuff. And I got it to be confused, frankly. However, because these AIs are typically programmed to be overly polite and maybe a little bit too confident, it corrected something that I said in my question to say, like, oh, you're wrong, this never happened. And I was like, no, I know that this particular thing did happen. How did you give me this answer? Let's get into it. So I was talking about this AI with a friend of mine the other day. I'm a novelist, he's in med school, and he was talking about how he uses ChatGPT for reviewing certain parts of his homework. He'll type in a specific question, not like his professors give him a question and he uses GPT for the answer, but like he needs to know something specific, and he's like, find me this specific thing and let me talk about it. And I remember him saying, you got to be careful because sometimes it'll just make things up. I was like, oh, that's fantastic for the medical industry. But I've run into the same thing on my end. A better name for AI other than artificial intelligence would be aggregated information. That's really what it comes down to. It's programmed to have a certain personality, and it pulls information from several sources, but it can get things wrong, and it can also misread your question. In my instance, I am working on my historical fiction, slight fantasy, supernatural, paranormal, whatever the hell you want to call it, about the Mayflower Pilgrims. And I needed to know a couple of things about the Wampanoags. With Native Americans, especially because sources can be so few and also so disparate, you've really got to stress the answers, test them, get something very specific out of it, just to avoid like going with the very first answer that you get. This is a pitfall that I've fallen into, thinking like, okay, this is what I know about this tribe or this nation or this confederacy. It was composed of this, and then you find either more detailed or different information later, or you find out the information that you had in the first place was wrong. Like it can get tricky. So you've got to be really discriminating with the answers that you get. But I digress. In this particular instance with Grok that I was using, I asked it, I said, wasn't there a member of the crew of the Mayflower named Coppins who harassed the saints? So the pilgrims were divided into saints and strangers. There were those who were going for religious reasons and those who were just going for commercial ones. And one of the crewmen, according to William Bradford, harassed the saints, and then he died on the voyage and they had to bury him at sea. And I said, wasn't there some guy named Coppins, a crewman named Coppins, who died at sea after harassing the pilgrims? And my mistake on my end with the input was that I had gotten that name wrong. There was a Coppin, but he wasn't part of the crew and he wasn't harassing the saints. But then the Grok, the GPT, the AI, whatever you want to call it, went a step further, and it was like, yeah, there was nobody from the Mayflower's crew who died this way and was buried at sea. And I was like, wait a minute, I know that that's wrong, because of this particular source and this, that, and the other thing. I said, didn't William Bradford mention in Plymouth Plantation that there was somebody that did this? And Grok apologized. It's like, you're right, I misread your question. And it went on to explain and elaborate and even gave me the page number and some other details to confirm that my query was correct. Some of my input was wrong, or worded ambiguously, but the answer that it gave was very confident that it was right. The thing is, this isn't any more of a hazard than just Googling something and going with whatever answer Google spits out. I think AI can be more precise and more refined than a random web search, but taking anything at face value that you get from an AI is just as reckless. You've got to stress test your answers. It can be a very powerful research tool, and I definitely get sharper information out of it, and it keeps me from wasting time going down rabbit holes whenever I'm writing. If I need to pause and go look for something specific, I can ask it a specific structured question that I could never ask in Google or Bing or whatever, and get a specific structured answer. I'm never going to take a story prompt and throw it into AI and say, give me 60,000 words on this and do this, and this. Like, I don't want to go down go down that road, because the whole point of writing is to write, and the actual process of it makes the work better. But there is a role that it can play. I'm not one of these devoutly anti AI creators either. I use it for thumbnails. I used to use it all the time for thumbnails on here before the Grok image generator got worse. But yeah, it's got a role to play, but you can't abdicate any of your responsibilities, whether as a creator or a researcher or whatever. Like, you've got to be the one calling the shots. I remember this book that I read called Wired for War that talked about robotic and digital military technology. And the military guys, the DARPA guys that were always talking about using AI as a military instrument, they said, we just want to keep humans in the loop and stuff. And it's like, really what it needs to come down to is, like, you've got to remain in control. You can't relegate any of your responsibilities to a machine that will then later decide that it can be more efficient or yield better results of whatever, if it never cedes control back to you. Thinking about that, and it's like, yeah, like I'm not ever going to hand over the reins of anything that I do to an AI. But if it can save me time and make me more productive by trimming off the minutes that I would waste doing something like this, then by all means, like, I'll use it. But you just remember, it needs to speed you up, not do the work for you. Anyway, those are some thoughts on AI tonight as I head into work. Going into Friday. Y'all drive safe. See you out there.